Alan Jackson is a genuine country music legend, but back in 2016, he found himself in a very different spotlight after walking out of the CMA Awards. And his reason for making such a scene was downright shocking. Alan was attending the CMA Awards when a certain performance caused him to get up out of his seat and leave the ceremony. And this wasn't just any CMA Awards, it was a special occasion celebrating 50 years of the event. In a rare collaboration, the Dixie Chicks, now known as the Chicks, were joined on stage by another legend. It was none other than the incomparable Queen Bee, aka Beyonce. Most music fans would have done anything they could do to witness something as iconic as this, but not Alan Jackson. And he made his feelings known about this sort of thing well in advance of him leaving. Before the event, Alan had some very telling words for a reporter. Alan was asked what he was hoping to see at the 50th anniversary ceremony of the CMAs, and he simply said he hoped they'd play some real country music. Apparently, he's not a fan of pop stars appearing at country music awards, which seems like a silly stance to take, as country music has become so popular and infused with so many talented artists across multiple genres. But like most of his peers who are also around 60 years old, Alan is set in his ways and likely not making any effort to become a fan of anything new. According to Alan, including pop stars at a country music event is just a shameless way to get more viewers. He said he understands that all of it's about trying to get TV ratings up, and the show will do whatever it can to accomplish that goal, usually with some kind of big event or major artist, which honestly makes sense, but he clearly wasn't a fan of this practice. Still, Alan didn't want to be completely negative, and he said he hoped that the CMA Awards would be a good country music show for a change. His use of "for a change" was really throwing some subtle but cutting shade. Unsurprisingly, many people in the building and at home praised Beyonce's performance as being exceptional, despite the fact that she's not a country music singer. Beyonce is an undeniable talent who shines on any stage she touches. It makes total sense that she was able to win over even very skeptical fans, but she wasn't able to win over Alan. According to eyewitnesses who were there, Alan stood up from his seat in the front row and stormed out in the middle of the performance. That's not just childish, but also incredibly rude, not to mention kinda silly, considering when else in your entire life are you ever gonna get a free front row ticket to see Beyonce perform? You might as well take advantage of that opportunity, especially since you know there are a million other people who would do anything to get that seat. And regardless of how Alan felt about Beyonce's contribution to the genre of country, what he did was wildly disrespectful to the Chicks. The Chicks undoubtedly belong in a conversation about the biggest country music stars of the last 100 years. Before this event, the Chicks had been largely absent from the public eye after some political controversy, and this performance was their big return. A return made all the more attention-grabbing in the headlines by the fact that they were joined by Beyonce. But Alan, by throwing a little fit, made the headlines all about his reaction, and he sadly robbed the Chicks, as well as Beyonce, of the positive attention they deserved. After all, it's not every day you get to see Beyonce perform Lemonade at a country music award show. That's definitely some major music news. But anybody who knows Alan shouldn't be totally shocked that he's always gonna speak his mind, even if his opinion isn't popular or polite. In 1994, when Alan was told to play to a backing track, something that's a fairly common practice in pop music, especially when it needs to be broadcast on television, he decided to rebel against the system. He instructed his drummer to play without sticks, making a visual mockery of the situation. Then, in 1999, after George Jones was scheduled to play an abridged version of his song Choices, Alan went on ahead and played the full song during his Papa Top performance. He clearly refuses to be censored or told what to do on someone else's time or schedule, and that policy extends to having to sit through a surprise Beyonce show. Alan didn't feel the need to comment directly on his decision to walk out, but an unnamed Nashville manager came to his defense in an interview with Billboard. The manager thought the performance was flat and said that, contrary to what people were saying, many industry professionals were less than impressed. That was shocking to anyone who was in attendance, because the seemingly unanimous verdict with the concert was that it was spectacular, and all the fans chiming in on social media tended to agree. The unnamed manager doubled down, agreeing with Alan, saying that the performance felt out of place at the 50th anniversary show. During a year that should have been celebrating country music's great legacy, suddenly Beyonce was the star, and the Chicks were essentially reduced to just being her backup band. So, in a way, Alan was respecting the Chicks by walking out, because the show was suddenly all about Beyonce. But that kind of attitude really doesn't take into account how contemporary country music has fused pop vocalists into some of the biggest hits of all time, and how, by adding these singers, country music becomes accessible to wider audiences. Without moments like Beyonce performing with the Chicks, you wouldn't be getting entirely new country fans who otherwise would have never listened to a country song. That's powerful, and is good for the genre as a whole, because if you don't start making new fans, eventually, any genre will just fade away. Another attendee downright refuted the manager's claims and said that everyone there loved it, and thought such a unique pairing was actually a fitting way to celebrate the 50th anniversary, because it was a way to celebrate where country music has been, and where it could be going. Plus, Beyonce's from Houston, Texas, which should be near and dear to many country music fans' hearts. It was also a much-needed pop of diversity on the stage that was largely dominated by white men for decades. Natalie Maines of the Chicks was very clear about her feelings regarding people being confused or upset by Beyonce appearing on stage. She thought it was disrespectful and disgusting, and although she didn't outright say it, it was implied that anyone who couldn't appreciate such a powerful moment was probably racist, misogynistic, or both. Alan Jackson never apologized for walking out of the Beyonce and the Chicks performance. Hopefully he feels good about his choice, because if he ever wants a front row ticket to see Beyonce perform again, it's not gonna be free. But anyway, what do you guys think about all this? Why did Alan really walk out of the performance? What's your favorite Beyonce song? Does pop music belong on stage at a country music award show? Let me know in the comments below.